Hello folks. In this video, we are going to learn how to make dynamic dropdowns, and basically by the end, we will end up with something like this. So we will select a value in this dropdown, and based on that, a dropdown will be set up here automatically. And you can see that all the values are related to primary. If you make it secondary, then the dropdown will become secondary. It takes a while to load because it runs a script at the end. So it's like there is a delay of 1.5 seconds, not more than that. However, you can keep continuing to update stuff. So for example, let's say if I come here and I update this and I don't have to wait for the other thing, I can keep updating and it will keep loading. And you can see that now I can come here, select what I want to select, and it will keep adding drop downs here. And now we see that this is all related to A primary values. This is all related to A secondary values, the value here. And then this should be all related to B primary. And this should all be related to A secondary. So I've set it up in a way so that you can see that the drop downs are actually working instead of going on this metadata sheets and check. So metadata sheet here is serving as just our data, uh, which is basically the basis of this drop down. So basically we can see that there are a lot of A primary, B primary, A secondary, B secondary values over here, and all of them have unique schools, and we have their levels also written over here. Now again, not the best data set, but it does the job of demonstrating uh, how to create dynamic dropdowns using app script. So this is quite perfect in that sense. Anyway, so basically by the end we will be left with something like this. Okay, so in this video, what we are going to do is we are going to just work on setting up our sheet. So in this sheet, you can see that I've already created the sheet, and I have basically I have metadata, and this drop downs sheet is empty, and this is our metadata which will serve as the basis of our drop downs. And this is where I've set up a conditional and this is where I've already set up a basic dropdown, which is school level. So school level is coming from this, and you can see that I've already put a drop down over here. So if I come here and I look at data validation, so I have one rule already set in the on this sheet, which is from B2 to B100. So B2 to B100. Till here we have a drop down from a range, and this range is coming from metadata C2 to C70. Basically from here C2 to C70. You can keep this open-ended as well. So if you keep adding values over here, let's say if they are not primary, secondary, and some other value, some other level comes up here, in that case, that will also come in the drop down. Anyway, let's come back here. So in this sheet, what we are going to do is first set up our drop down sheet. Now this is important because we don't want our code to work too much. As you already saw that there is still a 1.5 seconds lag, and imagine if we ask our code to also, or if we write our code to do this processing as well, where it comes to this sheet and it looks at primary and it finds all the values here that are related to primary, and then finds the unique values out of them, and then sets them in a range, in a drop down over here. That would take too much time. Now that 1.5 second can also become 2 seconds, 2.5 seconds, 3 seconds, who knows, depending on the length of data that you have or the amount of data that you have. So for that thing, what we're going to do is set up a drop down sheet. So in that drop down, we can see that the first level of drop down that we want is primary and secondary. So basically we want primary and we want secondary, and we want all the drop down values that should come when somebody selects primary over here, and all the drop down values that should come when somebody selects secondary over here, right? So basically that's why we want that. And similarly, when somebody will select the level, what is coming after that? Type is coming after that. So then we want, when somebody selects any type from here, based on that, only the schools that are against that type show up in the drop down. So for example, to show you that in practice, let me put a drop down, put a filter on A primary, and we can see that we only want this in our drop down. And when we select A secondary over there, then we only want this in our drop down, like that. Now we can put up a filter and copy the value from here and paste it here. So for example, what we can do is we want all the values that should pop in the type, or that should be in the type drop down when we have selected level primary, right? So basically create a filter, select primary, and we want all of this to appear in our drop down. So you can do it like this. My bad. So you can do it like this as well. However, what would happen is that if you keep adding values over here, and there are different values and new values, then this drop down list will not populate automatically. So that's the downside of this. But yeah, if you know that this metadata is always going to be static, in that case, go ahead and the only setup that you need to do is basically select primary, secondary, and all the drop downs that can come from here. Basically all the drop downs that can come here. So basically A secondary, sorry, if you select primary, then the drop downs that you will get is A primary, B primary, and C primary, because these are the only three unique values. So when you select A primary, B primary, and C primary, what should the schools be, right? So you can just go ahead and do that. So when you select A primary, B primary, like that, and you can just filter the values out for that. So when somebody selects A primary values, these are the school values that I want in my dropdown. So you can go ahead and use this approach if your data is static. Now, because the data that I mostly deal with is not static, and also I want to keep my sheet dynamic, um, and not just the drop downs, the entire sheet. So that's why I'm going to use an approach where this sheet also keeps getting updated as our metadata keeps getting updated. So maybe new school gets added, new level gets added, or new type gets added. Then I don't want to come here and make the changes again and again. So for that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with this. So when I'm going to select school level, what are the types that I want to appear in my drop downs? So the levels that we have, I would want them to be here, and then drop down values for each level. So basically level will be this header, and then another level, and then the values for that level and values for this level, right? So what I'm going to do, and you can see that my level is coming from here. So what I can do is go ahead and use unique and select my value like this, and I can select all the way up to till 1000, because if I keep adding new things, then I want all of them to appear there. And you can see that I have primary and secondary, so because in all of this, only two unique the only unique values that we have is or are primary and secondary. But I don't want them like this, I want them like this. For that, we can simply use transpose, and there you go. So this is one. We'll deal with the drop down values for primary, and we'll deal with the drop down values for secondary later. Let's come here now. Type. Now the second level of drop down that we have, or that we are going to build, is when somebody selects type. Based on that, I want the drop downs to be set for school. So if somebody selects A primary, then I want all the A primary related schools in my drop down. So that means the second thing that I want up here is my type. Now again, I'll just use same thing, transpose, unique, and the values that I want here is type up to 1000. Close this, and you can see that these are my unique values for type. Now I want values here that should appear in my dropdown when somebody selects A primary in the type here. So those are the values that I want here. So for that, I'm going to use a formula called query. Query is also probably my favorite formula to use. Like I try to do everything using query. Maybe if something that could be solved using count or countif or something like that, I'll still use query, because why use 10 different formulas when you can just use one every time? So it saves me bandwidth into thinking that, okay, which formula should I use here? So in that case, I just use query almost everywhere. Okay, so I'll do a query, and query, in case you're not aware of query or what query does or what the syntax for query is, then I'm going to talk about this here, but I will probably create a video about query, and a full video dedicated to query, because query is such a beautiful formula and it deserves its own video. I'll create that, and I'll also create how to create a dashboard using query, fully functional dynamic dashboard. And I'll just show you the query formula in all its glory. But yeah, I'll briefly talk about this here, but again, this is not a tutorial for query, so I'm not going to go in depth here. Okay. So first thing it takes is data. So the data that I want to select is my ABC column from metadata, right? And I'll lock this. You on Windows you can press F4. I do not know what to do on Mac, because I'm not a Mac user, never used Mac. I don't think I'll ever want to use Mac, but uh, time will tell, right? Anyway, so yeah, I have locked my column so that if I drag my query formula from one cell to another cell, then I don't want my reference to move with it. Second thing it takes is query, and query is same thing as your SQL. Query is basically same. So you select, and what do I want to select? So I want to select, if I come here, I'll see So right now, because I have not finished the formula, that is why you can see it's an error there. But basically what I want is when somebody selects primary, I want these values from here in my type drop down. So in my formula, I will select which column? Column A, right? So I'll select column A, and I want to select this where my um, level is in column C, where C is equal to, and now what I want to do is reference this cell, right? I can do simply, I can write, sorry, I can write primary, right? But I want to refer this. So now you can see, because I've selected here, select A where C equals primary, I've gotten all the values over here, right? So that's how it works. But I want to drag this here. And when I want to drag this, I want this cell reference to change to secondary. For that, I need to give it a reference rather than a static value, right? So as you saw that, if you noticed, I didn't explicitly talk about it, but when you want to write a string where C equals something, so if it's a number, you can simply write 0 or 8 or 100 if it's an integer value. But if it's a string value, then you use single quotes. Now, why do we use single quotes? Because if we use double quotes, it will just close the query, because double quote marks are starting and ending of the query. Now, single quote. Inside this, we will write the syntax for referencing a cell within a formula. And to do that, we use this. Inside this, we use two ampersands. And inside the ampersand, we can reference this. Now I want to lock my row, but not my column, because I don't want to move my row. So that's why I will lock my row with a $sign, but I'll not lock my column. So my column is open. And if I click enter now, you can see that all the values that are related to primary are here. Now you can see that it's not unique values, and basically I just wanted to filter it first. And now to filter it further or just get unique values, we can just wrap all of this within a formula called unique, and we got the unique values. And now we can drag this and we'll get the secondary values, right? Now I can take this formula, copy this, paste this here, and now my reference will become D. So I want this to be D now, right? And I'll click enter. Now what is happening right now is that I'm selecting A where C is equal to this, but I don't want A, and I don't want to look this value or match this value in C. So let's come here. So when I select type, I want the drop downs to be set from school. So this is my type, right? So that means I want to look where in A. So I want to match this value in column A, right? And where is my school? In column B. The values for school are in column B. And so I want the values from B. And if I select this, you can see, and we already have unique over here, so we get only unique values, right? And now all I have to do is just drag this down, and you can see that first let me figure this thing. Okay, now you can see that these are all A primary, these are all B secondary related schools, these are all C primary related schools, these are all A secondary related schools, right? So this is our setup. Our setup is done, and in the next video we will go ahead with our uh, app script and how to create dynamic drop downs.